Kim and Jill are going to be our two panelists tonight who are going to help us frame the issue. I've known Kim a long time, and I know a little bit about her story. I don't know that I know it all. And Jill has been volunteering with us at Whistleblowers of America for several months, putting the toolkit together. Really got started with a conversation I think having, and then the need to expand it to include more than just the college students, but also to really start thinking more about the parents. And both of them I know are parents with experiences from that realm, and both of them I believe have minor children, but we also have some of our college students on tonight. I'm hoping we can talk more about what that's like as an adult on your own, trying to navigate what can be a very scary environment because you're putting so much into your education. So as more and more people are still logging in, and again, I'm going to ask if people would like to be connected or don't mind introducing themselves in the chat. This way we can see who's here, and maybe just what city you're in or what part of the world you're in, so that we have a better sense of who's here with us tonight. So I'm going to let Jill start, and then I'll have Kim introduce herself. You're on mute. You have to unmute.
I'm Jill Boozer, and I'm a physical therapist assistant, stay-at-home mom. For years I homeschooled, and I worked in the school for nearly 3 centuries. I'm 28 years in the school system as a physical therapist assistant. And my daughter, let me explain to you, I'm in South Alabama, and it's really, during the summer, it's really hot here. And my daughter was a swimmer on the swim team. And I've been a swimmer all my life, but when you're swimming, there's a certain heat that it's just too hot. It'll make you really sick. So I would say all the national organizations say you should not have competitive swim practice. It should be around 81. If you're a swimmer and it starts getting on up there, it's too hot. You're continuously swimming. So 81 is what they're supposed to. Well, when I recognized our swim team was swimming in 94 degrees, they were having competitive swim practice in 94. The girls themselves started saying, hey, this is too hot. They were getting sick, exhibiting signs of exertional heat stroke from throwing several signs. And one girl wrote a letter saying that she very well defined, what we're doing is dangerous. And the coaches came back with, no, we're not. We're not concerned. Her exact words is, we're not concerned. And with the heat, and then I want to say I started trying to advocate, saying it's too hot. Let's, not swim at this heat. And so later on, like a week later after we had reported it, the girls were getting sick and they left. Our girls they had to leave deck. They were just getting sick. And a week late, like within the next couple days, my daughter was punished. And 4 of the girls who were the most experienced and the most vocal were also punished. They were forced to leave the team or swim in these conditions. So all the things classic, the kids themselves were whistleblowers, but I truly went up there to the school system. I outlined it. I sent documentation about how dangerous it was, and then began the gaslighting, telling me that I was wrong about what was going on, and never told, this was wrong. They continued to kind of say they didn't do what they did, and our girls could not return. So they couldn't return they never made it right. But now my daughter was told classic whistleblower retaliate. She was punished and told they've made up things, that she didn't do, but I can clearly, and I will go back. I started questioning the state athletic department. I started saying, hey, they're having practices in unsafe conditions. And I never turned anybody in. I just had questions. And when our girls started getting sick, they left the pool deck. But the more they advocated, the more trouble they got in, and they were not allowed to return because they for a lot of reasons, but they were punished. The number one swimmer in our state in several events could not go back to swim because they were not going to make it safe. They wanted her. They were being very vocal. They wanted her off the team at that point so she could stop. And that's my story.
Okay, well, we'll go into the what happened next, but I want to let Kim have a few minutes to introduce herself and what happened with your daughter, which, I think is also an amazing story.
Yeah, she's here with me. So.
Oh, she is. Okay.
Yes. And so she knows I'm super proud of her. For me, I was an HR chief and was experiencing not just some bullying and what felt like gender kind of targeted harassment, but I was seeing it for a lot of other folks and went through something similar where it was extremely difficult to even get the board of directors to move. When I informed them of this, not only did they not do anything, they informed the chief executive who I had complained about my complaint. So things did not go well for me after that. And it was a really painful year, feeling like my job was on the line every day as a single mom and trying to force them to do things that I know is supposed to happen in HR, like doing a fair investigation, an impartial investigation. And so we finally got through this whole process where at the end of a year, they sustained allegations of abuse. But what I believe happened was that I made a claim that the targets were women because that's what I observed. And then I believe a man came forward, which basically turned something that would have been unlawful into something that's now lawful or not unlawful, however that awful term is, because bullying is not illegal. So they sustained allegations of abuse and basically told me to have a nice day. So it was an incredibly painful year. And as a single mom, I think it really, it greatly impacts how you show up. Your cortisol is pumping all the time. You're exhausted, you can't sleep, and you're not there. And so after getting through this process, I became heavily involved with Jackie in supporting the Workplace Psychological Safety Act. And my baby has gone when she was 15 years old and testified before the Rhode Island Senate Labor Committee to say, this doesn't just affect parents, it affects kids and communities too. So she's become a mini celebrity in her own right, and I'm super proud of her. So yeah.
Well, welcome, and thank you. It's so wonderful that parents and children can team up on these things, because very often what we hear is that children are afraid to go to their parents with what is happening at the schools. I got a lovely little note from Jennifer Frazier today, who wrote The Bullied Brain and the Gaslit Brain, and the stories of her son and his bullying and her trying to, help him, and the way he navigated it was different than the way she navigated it. And sort of learning from him as well, going through this. So I think the obvious next question is, so you see these things happening at the school, whether it was, Kim, in your case, it was the bullying. Jill, you saw these, what I'll just call safety or OSHA violations. You go to the school. What kind of guidance did you get initially? Do they tell you what your rights are? What do they do next?
I will say I started reporting that, I guess, with the athletic director. Once I told him, I had already asked questions and he was mad at me. So he did nothing. He didn't help. He was not helpful at all. I do say there is a discrimination person that is, I think schools have certain, somebody that you can report to, but I was never told that. Nobody ever told me who to report to. So there's a lot of things I did not know, and I've learned since being in this. But I will say there were, before all this happened, there was a lot of bullying going on from the coach. The coach was alienating our girls, publicly humiliating them. When she got mad at them, she would talk bad about them. So there was some bullying from the coach. It wasn't other children. In fact, other children were noticing it. And she continued. It just got worse. But I will say the person in charge who I went to did not help at all. He made things worse. In fact, he told me, your daughter's not a good fit because of your complaints, which is well documented. He basically said you can't. And he said he made his decision because of my complaints. So there is a discrimination person, but I didn't know anything about it at the time. I know a lot more now, but I would say dig in and find that person and go to somebody else if you're not getting support within that. And there is a chain of command, and I followed that chain of command. In our state, in the state level, they won't do anything. Kim, what state are you in?
I was in California when my situation happened, but I'm reside in Washington, D.C. now.
Yeah, the state legal department said we can't do anything about retaliation. It is a federal Title IX. It's a Title IX, and they're behind. The federal OCR is years behind in getting to anything. And in fact, I think they've closed down in some places.
I think that they cut off their funding altogether.
Well, I still communicate with my.
Do you? Oh, good. Okay.
I will say the Office for Civil Rights is over all that. They're horribly behind. And I still communicate on a monthly basis. So I do know.
Yeah, because I thought that they had been completely gutted. So that's good news. Okay.
I think for most of our research, and maybe somebody on our team can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think most of our research when we were putting together the Student Whistleblower Toolkit was focused on where do all these complaints go, and they seem to go up through the Office of Civil Rights, through either the school district, the state, and I think that's where some of this gets a little harder to deal with as well, because you're constantly, each state does it differently, and there are different offices. And then whether you're at the universities, if you're a private university or a state university, it's always follow the money, right? So who is funding these programs that then might have an interest or an impact in how these cases are handled? I talked to one woman who was a parent who was raising money, the boosters, and the parents getting together who were the big donors. The coach might have mistreated some of the children, but when the parents got together, I think that made a difference as well. And Jill, to your point, and I think Jennifer Fraser in her book points this out too, the biggest bullies in these stories were not other kids. It was teachers, it was coaches, it were the adults bullying the children who then are in this conflict of who do you tell, with Alyssa Tappan. Kenzie, you'll have to put her information in the chat for me. So we have a woman down here who does a lot of work to help victims of trafficking. And her story starts with a coach and the grooming that the coach did to befriend her and, sort of isolate her and make it so that he could start, him and then some of his other compatriots could start to sexually abuse young girls. And that's now what the work that she does all the time. Thank you, Kenzie. I wasn't sure I was getting her name right. Alyssa Tappan, Survivor-Led Solutions is the work she does with students. And she was another one who wanted to be here tonight, but is getting an award. Yeah.
With me, it was definitely the coach, and I tried to go up to administration, but I wasn't the only one. I know that there was another mother who reported that she went to the principal and said, he told her, you are the 8th person to complain. So 8, and so she wanted to know, what have you done about that? And he said, I can't tell you. Well, when you have 8, I mean, what do we do as parents when we find out all these other people were complaining? But now I want to say this, there are some great teachers in our district, wonderful teachers. It's when they allow this to happen and they don't do anything about it. It's a problem. And what do we do as parents? And I will say, and another thing, as a whistleblower, for me, my job was to take care of my child and to make sure. So I sheltered her from, like, this coach wanted, after she kicked her off the team, she wanted her to call her, wanted my daughter to call her. Well, that wasn't, she had showed some characteristics that were bizarre. I wasn't going to let my daughter call her, and let her tell her, I don't know my job was to take care of my child first. And that's what I did. I do feel like she came through it with flying colors. She's doing good today and is in college and very healthy. Yes, doing very healthy. In fact, she's here in the house studying right now. So, and there have been some great teachers in her path, but I'm going to fight for legislation, that we need legislation that'll help with accountability, when you do have problems like that. And there needs to be some education on who should I have went to, like the toolkit you're putting out,
Yeah, we were shocked that there really wasn't a lot of information out there when we started to go, well, who can we refer to? And then went, well, now I know why people are calling us, because there really isn't a good source of who we should refer to. Kim, what happened? How did your case move forward? I know there was some movement there, and there was some cause for celebration, maybe?
Yeah, there definitely was. It all had to do with how I took records. And so I was able to negotiate an exit that was very favorable and then move on kind of down the road from there. And I've worked on helping people over the years. I actually recently even started my own organization just to help people deal with this specific type of retaliation. And because of my experience, I tend to focus a lot on executive abuse, but that can be a principal, it can be a coach. The fundamental principles are abuse of power. Because a lot of times when policy is written, they have these guidelines, but they somehow go up in smoke when a powerful person is now the part of the problem. And so how do we deal with the realities of that? Because if somebody's investigating them and they can't get them to move, they don't have that leverage, what are some of the things we can do to build leverage? And so I spent a lot of time trying to get folks, and I think it'd be good for folks on the call to look at this, like websites like Hively, which is HIVE-LY.com, and another one called Work Receipts, which is WRKReceipts.com. Now, it's meant for workplace abuse, but I think any abuse it could be really helpful with, because this is basically AI helping you come up with a timeline. And I think there's some similarities that apply here, because when people show up at HR or they show up with school, and I've had to go through some similar situations with my kids' school, there's a huge difference between a complaint in a private room where there's no audience and no one knows it's happening, to a legally documented timeline that screams, I have an attorney, or I'm prepared to take this outside of the walls that you can control. And I know in my cases of dealing with schools that were not responding, and very similar to what you talk about, Jill, also worked with Office of Civil Rights. But ultimately it was the political and social pressure that really did them in, and a lawsuit. But the lawsuits can't happen without really careful, detailed notes. And the amazing thing about AI now is that's never been easier. And like when, like the 8 women that you were just talking about, like if all 8 women had gone to an AI site and put in the same thing and then presented that to the principal, it might be more compelling. And if not, the local news station would find it compelling. And then it becomes a job risk.
Where I had problems, and I see other people that had the same problem. There were no losses. Nobody lost their life. Nobody got really sick. Nobody died. So there was no lawsuit. There was no damages. So I didn't have a lawsuit. There's no, the lawyer said,
you really go, just because there's still a form of retaliation for raising a concern. And so even without that, and you're right, it is very, unfortunately for Alabama, I've done statewide studies. It's not the best.
It's horrible.
If you want to file a claim against a school, California is going to be far better for something like that. And there's a lot of attorneys that do nothing but go after schools that can be more helpful in that regard. And we've had to go down that road too. But and when you're dealing with people who are gaslighting you, what I found is a lot of times they either A, have no idea what they're talking about, or B, do know, but they're just hoping you don't, and they really just want you to go away. And so they manufacture a lot of bad information. And so sometimes it can be a lot of work, but I definitely think, whether you're looking at testimony, whether you're looking at getting news support, and I've seen a lot of people just get one local paper to cover it, and now the school board cares, and then things change from that, can be really powerful for what it's worth.
Well, I know there needs to be resources put out, and I'm thankful for Jackie and Whistleblowers America for putting out those resources, because I did not know what to do. But now I'm the daughter of a educator, and I documented like a beast. And
Good.
so I documented like a beast.
Good.
So, and I've learned a lot, doing through this process that I would love to share with, other people. Sending a FOIA request. Did not know that, I didn't know that I could do that. And I will say, I've seen on your site, Zimmerman, the FBI, a guy.
Oh, Mike Zimmer. Yeah, Mike Zimmer.
Oh, yeah, from Louisiana. Yeah, he's great.
He sent me a link to a FOIA request in Alabama. So that was very helpful, because I didn't realize how much you can get from the school. And I really think we should do that a lot more, especially when you have 8 complaints. When a principal tells somebody, let's complain, I'd like to see her record, to see if those were documented. And they should have been, since she's a public educator. But
no, I think that's a good point. And I don't know that we put that in our toolkit about doing the FOIA.
It needs to be. Well, I know Alabama has a sample that you can click and paste and send, and helps you.
Betsy, let's make a note of that for when we do our first update on what we've already just published. Is to add is how to do a FOIA to get these records from the school board, from the districts. I think that as we do this, I am not. We've had other whistleblowers who are more Title IX type experts. I know there were some attorneys I saw popping in and out of this. But if there is legislation or anything else we can do or write or share, that's one of the reasons we have these roundtables, is so that we can sync up on these issues. And we've done a few things about the children of whistleblowers who are very often targeted at school because of what's going on with their parents, especially if their parents have become famous. Building those networks of support and anything that we can do, and putting out a call for assistance, is really what I have found works when we're organizing whistleblowers. We are at that halfway point, and I see Steve has put his hand up. Steve, I've also noticed that you are active in the chat. I think people want to jump into this conversation. So I know, and I saw Jennifer and Rob. I know Jennifer, saw you were a librarian. I want to know where you were when I needed a librarian. But I'm going to start with Steve, and then I'm going to go to Jennifer and then Rob. So Steve, over to you, if you'll unmute and introduce yourself. I can't hear you.
You have to unmute him. Hold on one second, please.
Okay. Steve, can we hear you? It's Steve. I think, do you have a headset on or something?
Okay, I think I made it possible for Steve to be able to speak.
All right, Steve, you're
Ready to go. I'll try it again.
Well, this, yeah,
Well,
he's
Steve, why
I
don't
will
we go to,
say
oh, go ahead.
the whistleblowing, when you retaliate against students and their parents, they are afraid to speak. You're affecting the most vulnerable in the institution, and so they have continued to be quiet and silenced. The continuation of the bad behavior, it continued, and I had 5 different parents tell me that their kids had to sign non-disclosure agreements. What were manipulated into. So what child or parent is going to speak up when you have when they notice and witness the retaliation? So
Great. All right, I think Steve is trying to figure out his connectivity. Let's try Jennifer.
Hi. So I'm from Baltimore City Schools for almost 20 years. And I was that teacher that students came to because they didn't know where to go for help. And I, as a librarian, I very well documented with many things like 504 and sexual harassment. I mean, and I have a lot of documentation and from everybody. And but I found that I still it did not work out very well. Part of it is that, the rules of how they explain that defending students, they can basically retaliate against you, is sort of how it was explained to me. I did have a lawyer that would take my case, but that was because they were also anti-Semitic, and I complained about that, and I'm Jewish. But the fact is, I know that all the horrible things they did was not about that, so I didn't feel comfortable moving forward, even though the timing worked. Now I'm like, I probably shouldn't have done. I probably just should have gone ahead with it anyway. But it's very, I guess, as an educator trying to help the kids, there are all these legislation. It is in place, like OSHA, and I did have the documentation, and I wasn't really able to access that as well as I should have been able to, I guess. So I don't know how. I just, as you put out all the stuff, I couldn't see the one thing because it was probably put in before I was able to click on it. But how to make it actually work for you, the legislation.
Yeah.
The kids that came to me were like foster kids and the kids that didn't have that much, so it's, and the problem is it's very political. And if I had the parents that had money, it would have been fine. But I did, so it's just how we deal with that, I guess would be something that would be helpful.
Yeah, no, you're definitely hitting all the problem points. Is that I think is one of the reasons we felt like we had to get in the middle of this, because most of what we do is just employment related. And then we saw these students were coming to us about their education experience. And it was through those challenges that we thought, well, this doesn't work in another realm, and the retaliation is very similar. And so how do we maybe build community around this? And, there's over 30 people on the call tonight that are concerned about how children are being treated when they whistleblow. And I think, that's just such an important element of what's happening that we need to address it. I see Steve is back. I'm going to go to Steve and Rob, and I see Elizabeth. So Steve, let's try this again.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so my name's Steve Strut. I am a former teacher and para-educator. I have about 15 years teaching experience and another 10 working with special ed students in classrooms. And in the 2020-2021 school year, during COVID, when the schools began to open up again, my principal, I'm sorry, I have asthma. So my principal started harassing me, and including like public humiliation in emails. So I reported that to my district. It's a very long story, but the superintendent did not conduct an investigation. And similar to, I think, Jill, I've been gaslit over and over. Like, it's just ridiculous. I've had 2 attorneys. One of them was, I have emails that show they were conspiring with the defense. The other guy just left out of nowhere. So I personally have had to like figure out, what to do. And Jen's book and your book, Jackie, the textbook is a great resource. But anyways, what I'm getting at is I've had to do a lot myself, and I'm also bipolar 2. And when all that stuff happened, I had like a breakdown or symptomatic relapse, and I bought probably about $10,000 worth of lifetime licenses to software that could help me in this endeavor and trying to get accountability. And after maybe a few months, I started to get unlimited user accounts. So I would love for anyone who needs any tools to contact me, I guess. I am my own first client for, I started the accountability organization. But yeah, I would love to give you access, or Jackie, if there's some way we could put on the website, like a link to something. I just like, there's tons of AI stuff. There's project management. There's, we could create 10 full social media companies. Like, I have so much stuff. So
we'll definitely take you up on some of that. We can have we can definitely follow up offline and try to figure out what it is you have. My husband jokes I would still be typing on a typewriter if they would still make whiteout.
Well, yeah, so that's been, my goal is to get this stuff in the hands of people who need it. So
Okay.
I'll message you on LinkedIn, Jackie.
Okay, yeah, and Paul Pearson, my VP, he's our technical guru, so we'll loop him in. Rob?
Yeah, hi. My question for Jill, I had technical problems. It was a little bit late, and I kind of heard you discussing competitive swimming. I was a former USA swimming official. I have 2 sons who are competitive swimmers in high school and college, and one of them even after. And, I started hearing some of the things you talked about, bullying and treating the female swimmers. I think it was, I, again, didn't catch it all.
Yep.
The question I think the most incredible thing I heard, and it was right as I came in, you mentioned something like a temperature of 91 degrees Fahrenheit. Was that correct? Did I? Is that correct?
94. It was
That is-
94.
Because there are regulations, I'm sure you're aware of them, where like
I know all of them.
Yeah, with 82 would be as high as you go. 84. By the time you're getting to 88, it's getting to be crazy town, and you can have, as you know, serious consequences. And 90. Okay, I thought I heard 91. I was just coming on 94. That's pretty crazy stuff. So, how many days did this? Was this an outdoor pool? I'm assuming this had to be.
It was an outdoor pool, and we were they were swimming in a small pool. You know, the smaller it is, the more it heats up. So they were in a small pool. It was 97 outside, 94 in the pool. So just dangerous. But the problem for me is they knew it was dangerous because we have heat. They have to take a coach's heat acclimatization, and you are required to give them weeks to get used to that, but not 94 degrees.
How many days
so
did that happen? How many times did it happen?
a week. They were doing it for a week. They were out there in a week, but no, they were targeting our girls. They weren't, you can do, they were out there for a week before they got in trouble, before my daughter got removed from the team. 7 to 6 days, and then 7.
I mean, did some of the kids get sick? Did people complain about heat exhaustion? I mean, what was?
Yes.
They had symptoms.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I missed all that. Wow, that's pretty crazy stuff. Yeah, I mean, where we went, unfortunately, it's very similar. This was a school in Pennsylvania. They just expect people who have a problem to leave the team. That was the only thing they were going to do for you. Basically, they back up the coach. Particularly, these are winning coaches. They tend to be, and even in this case, boys championship team, the girls were equally talented or better. But the problem is I don't know if you try to coach in the same way, of course, some of that bullying that they do for the boys, it actually stimulates them for some reason. Most of them, anyway, will break down a lot of the girls. You don't coach in the same way, at least from what I've seen from swim teams. The coaches did manage to figure that out eventually, but still, the school's response tends to be like, if you don't like it, go play golf or something, do something else. That was really basically their attitude. But they weren't doing this dangerous because you have, I assume, attorneys who could, I'm guessing here, take all this information and, document it and file a complaint. What became of that?
I did. That's what I went to the state athletic department, who is not, I think they're a club. I don't think they're funded. I think it's not a public, I don't know, but I went to the state and asked questions, and they really didn't help. They did send me, I don't know if you've ever heard of, oh gosh, they follow the acclimatization, and I was in contact with a guy Corey Stringer Institute. They put out the guidelines for Alabama, and they weren't following those guidelines. But gaslighting, they're
How did you do the temperatures? I guess is that something that they did, and you got the records, or did you measure it? Because they're a big deal out of that too.
I measured it myself, but I had digital. I went when we realized we had another master swimmer come in and start helping, and I got my own temperature. But it was a local YMCA that I grew up at, so I knew where to go to check the temperatures. But also they were practicing on the local base here, Fort Rucker, Alabama. They had a base, so I sent in. I did everything. I sent in and got. They sent me a record of all the temperatures.
That's that right. They do their records.
They do that.
The Fort Rucker did. They had no problem, but that wasn't the school system. The school system wasn't going to give me anything.
So their record is what your measurements were.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy. Okay.
And I know Elizabeth's been patiently waiting, so I haven't forgotten you. I want to bring Elizabeth into this conversation as well. So if you don't mind introducing yourself, coming off mute.
All right, so can you hear me? Okay. Yeah. I'm Elizabeth Ogden, and full disclosure, Jill and I have known each other for, it's got to be over a year that we have been talking. We got in touch because of a newspaper article. My district, public school district, has a habit of making the news. About 9, maybe even 10 years ago, we had a 9-year-old girl commit suicide over bullying. And there was a lawsuit, and it was eventually thrown out. Because here's the thing. OCR in the federal government only handles retaliation if it has to do with protected classes. If you are not being discriminated against because of your disability, a Title IX issue, or race, they're free to treat you like that. So I have a special needs daughter who's now an adult, and I pulled my kids out to homeschool many years ago. Life changed. My husband wanted them back at school, and we moved districts. And I swore I wouldn't get involved because I knew. I knew what you encounter with public school as the mom, because more often than not, mama is the one that deals with this. And then you run into the whole issue of how school employees treat mamas differently than they treat daddies when complaints are made. They went back, and like Jill, my big involvement began over girls' athletics. My daughter's a baton twirler. And just prior to her being able to make the high school team, we had a scandal where a school employee was sexually involved with 2 people in the band, including a majorette, and the school's answer was to get rid of the program. Because truly, the real problem is the girls, not the adult men at school. So that there would be a program, I lodged complaints about what was going on, because it was beyond just that. And that ended up with a school teacher putting his hands on my child in an attempt to intimidate her. She was 12. Then within a year, she was hospitalized when a school employee allowed another child to hold her in extreme heat and force her to continue working without cold water. So she went full heat stroke and had to be taken to the emergency room. And all of this, there's no accountability. I went to OCR, and OCR dismissed my claim, saying that I did not get people to sign paperwork, when they told me I didn't have to get them to sign paperwork. But the reason for kicking it, when I sent my paperwork in, it never got here. Enter how Jill and I ended up getting hooked up. Another local lady was trespassed from school. She's the named defendant in Carter versus the Department of Education. She's since come off that case. And that has to do over the funding cuts and the shutting down. It's a class action at this point. And I told her, make sure you follow up. Well, they sent her a message saying they were going to dismiss her complaint because she'd not sent in the appropriate paperwork. But due to my warning, she'd sent it certified mail, and they'd already signed for it. So when you're dealing with OCR is not going to be the answer you think it is. Jill has had the same issue. Everyone that's been referred to OCR, and really and truly at the end of the day, all the OCR does is say stop, or I'll say stop again, even when they rule in your favor. But if you're an employee, right, if you file an OCR complaint because you're a librarian or a teacher, you're still holding on to your job. If you're a student, by the time they get to you, you're not even at that school anymore. You're gone. You're out of the system, right? So they literally can just wait you out. So the answer is going to be, it's not federal. There's almost nothing federal that is going to be the answer, because if you're being retaliated against because you're a protected class, the state abdicates and says, well, we don't handle that. You have to talk to OCR. And then you go to OCR, and it's been 2-3 years for Jill, maybe, and it's still sitting there. 4 years, right? Okay, so it's just the runaround. But to give you an example of why everybody thinks, oh, you'll just get a lawyer. Well, I talk to lawyers. So they don't take the case because of qualified immunity. And in the case that in Adams versus Demopolis Board of Education, this is where the young girl killed herself. The only way that they had grounds to sue in federal court was for the bullying to have been gendered or racial, and the school didn't do anything. I've read the depositions. The superintendent literally said that, and I'm going to use strong language, bitch is not a gendered term. In his professional opinion, because all the kids call each other that these days. And guess what? Judge agreed because he said it was in his professional opinion. Now, having dealt with the man, I have always wanted to, he's no longer here. He chose employment elsewhere after I lodged a documented complaint about his son sexually harassing my child. Right? But I did always want to ask him if he knew that I knew that when he referred to me as a bitch, he meant one thing. And when I referred to him as one, it meant a whole different thing. So it is gendered. But all they have to do is say, in my professional opinion, I didn't need to take this step. And that's what's accepted. And so Jill and I have talked extensively. I also had an additional problem with the school system, with a teacher cussing at the students, not with, not around, at. And then she didn't even know what words meant. She literally took time out of her schedule to teach them the meaning of a word, and it was incorrect. I know this because my child recorded her. Because I started recording school employees because I knew they would lie. She came to me and said, can I record them? And I said, baby, the minute you start recording them, you're going to be me. And you're going to get blowback. But she found out real quickly that they just accuse you of lying.
Well,
So
in some states, I want to throw up a word of
Alabama
caution
is a
here.
single party consent state.
Okay. You knew where I was going.
So,
with it.
right.
Don't record in
There's
my
that.
Maryland.
You do have to check
Yeah,
if you are a
don't
single
record
party
people in
consent state.
Maryland.
Yeah, there's a band director that no longer works here because he lied to me. And I had him on tape telling me, it's not tape anymore. That's my age, right? But I had him recorded telling me one thing. And when I went to my daughter, I let her listen to it. This is what he said. And she said, Mama, he's lying. And I said, but baby, it's going to be your word against his. So she recorded him. And I did go to the State Board of Education because in Alabama, he didn't just lie. He lied about an educational matter, and that is a violation of the Alabama Educator's Code of Ethics. So if you don't know if your state has a code of ethics for their educators, it's almost the only thing that you can get them with.
That's
Right.
another thing we can put on that list, that code of
Yeah, I'm making myself
Yeah,
some
but
room.
most people don't even know it exists. And it's one of the few things because there's teacher tenure, right? In Alabama, if you actually get fired, even if it's for a every teacher in Alabama has an automatic right to a 16-step process up to the Alabama Supreme Court. And in fact, about 15 years ago, we had a teacher from Coffee County sitting in jail convicted of molesting a child, and she was still drawing her paycheck, covered on her insurance, and the school system was still paying into her retirement plan. So some state legislature said, surely if you've been convicted of molesting a student, perhaps we ought to be able to deny you the right to appeal your firing. And that actually kicked up a lot of problems in the state politically. You would think that's a no-brainer. No, it is not. But you can't even get them to firing for how they run their classroom, and that includes how they treat your children.
Right.
And without there being a violation of the Educator's Code of Conduct. And most states have them. But most parents have no idea they exist. So that's actually a huge one.
Yeah, I think that's something I think we'll definitely, Betsy, I wrote it down, but if you'll write it down, is something we should follow up on. But
Before
Elizabeth, I also, I mean, we're getting to the top of the hour and I see other people have their hands up. I don't know your first name. It looks like V Villain. You can introduce yourself.
You better turn your mics off.
And yep. Oh, there you are. Now I can see you anyway. I still can't hear you. We need you to unmute.
There we go. Thank
Yeah,
you.
there you are.
I'm on
And
my,
what is your
my
name?
laptop. My name is Val.
Oh, Val.
Yes,
Okay.
I'm joining from Hawaii. And I hear a lot of familiar stories and spread out amongst different genres. I'm just going to call it that because our story is related to special education, but I'm hearing that this type of alleged retaliation is based off of more than just special education. I kind of want to fast forward, and I wanted to ask one question. Has anybody considered the DOJ for systemic failures?
I called when I realized there was discrimination. I did so much. I called the DOJ, but they turned me back to the school. I'm pretty sure but it's been so long ago. It's been 3 years. But I did call, but I thought that I'm not sure. I know that it's my understanding that it's going to take a lot of people to get together to get any legislation. And it's hard to do in retaliation because I had so many people come to me and say, we don't want to talk because their kids are still in school. I had parents who her kids were being mistreated and they say, please don't say my name. My kid's in this sport and they saw what happened. So it's hard. I'm sure that's with whistleblower retaliation too. I will say also, it's been hard because as a parent, I'm not classified as a employee. However, I did work for the school system with a contract company, and I was asked by the school if I would come work for them. After this happened, I don't think the special ed director knew that all this, and she asked me to come work for him. But it's as a parent and a student, they don't have the same rights or same protections that you have with your what do you call the whistleblower protection laws, Sarbanes-Oxley,
Right. Yeah, that's why we are usually mostly employment related because those are the laws that we nest under. We're stretching here our
Yes.
necks because my mascot is the giraffe. I tend
And
to
I
stick my
appreciate
neck out where it doesn't belong. This is my little giraffe. Here he is. So this was just for us to throw open this conversation because I can't say that even I know some of the answers to this. I see Hayden put his hand up. So maybe over to Hayden. Maybe he's got more insights on some of this than I do. But I'm open to us having whatever kind of group or whoever wants to continue this conversation. Hayden?
Hey, Jackie. Can you hear me?
Yes, barely. Nope, I could hear you. Now I can't. Did I lose you?
How about now?
Yes, there you are.
Great. I know Jackie from a while back at this point,
Yes.
but I'm glad you brought up the DOJ, and I am not going to get into all of the political aspects of this, but there is a narrative that things are underfunded, not working. The EEOC, the OCR, all of these enforcement mechanisms are in shambles. And that is not quite the case. The DOJ would be very interested, the EOC, OCR would be very interested in cases. Some of those focuses have shifted for sure. One of the main ones with them has been less of a I guess looking at the statistics and more of individual cases. So a bigger emphasis on enforcement of individual cases. But I would just emphasize that it is worthwhile. I'm not saying that, it's a perfect system. It has been a changing system for sure, but it is still active. And particularly when it comes to states, and sometimes it depends on the states, if we're being honest, the DOJ would absolutely go after something. Unfortunately, the history, and I'm talking 20 plus years, has shown that can depend on the administration. But I think it's still worthwhile to pursue. The DOJ aspect, particularly, is a good one to throw in.
Could I just interject? I think the word systemic is important to identify when we speak about the Department of Justice. They, unlike OCR, which will take an individual case, I don't believe that is the case of the Department of Justice so much. I think they're looking at not just one story, but many stories that show systemic failure. So when I say, has anyone considered that? I kind of mean like in a collective way. Of course, special education would have to sit with special education. Athletics would have to sit with athletics. I don't know how you could tie them in together across the board that relates to the Department of Education. But if you were able to kind of segregate the groups and go forward with one cohesive complaint, and that involves, a lot of documentation, it involves going through your state steps. So like in my state, you have the monitoring compliance branch for IDEA, you have civil rights compliance branch for 504 and civil rights. That is under the DOE. You also have HCRC, which is under the state of Hawaii for civil rights. Then you have the ombudsman and you have the ethics board. So moving through the system to kind of climb the ladder to federal oversight to show that you took the steps to go through the system. And I know it's quite a headache, but also document the failures on the state level and bring that as well with your complaint and one collective voice, along with the failure of the state as being an interest for DOJ.
No, I appreciate that. And I see Martha said she can't she can't raise her hand, but wanted to join the conversation. Martha, if you want to turn on your camera, your mic, so we can see your.
Can you hear me?
Yep, there you are. Oh, there
Okay.
you are.
So my name's Martha, and it's kind of interesting that, so I met Jill a few months ago. She and I are local, same area, and then I heard Elizabeth speak about Coffee County, Alabama, which is where we're at. So obviously this place is pretty corrupt and very interesting. After years of retaliatory behaviors from a principal, kind of culminated in an event last year in the spring with my son, who's a senior, graduating in 12 weeks, thank goodness, with an unconstitutional search of a vehicle. Basically, same thing, went to numerous attorneys, ended up speaking to a lady down in Mobile who specialized in education law. And she said, absolutely, you have a case. However, you don't have damages. And so therefore, it's going to cost you probably $10,000 to start this process. It's going to be about 3 years, and you're probably going to be in for $150,000 at minimum. And so obviously, nobody that I know has that kind of money to just kind of throw around. And so her suggestion to me was, you can get your win. Go to social media, go to, any platform that you can post on to get the attention for the matter. And so that's kind of what I've done. And that's how Jill connected with me. Margot, I met her through social media. And so, my main sharing is TikTok. And, it's crazy because I have literally comprised a list of literally 21 different states where people have reached out to me with similar stories. And I mean, all the way from Washington State to Maine to Texas, it's insane. So I really do appreciate your organization holding this event. And obviously there's a need for a big catalyst for change in this area.
Yeah, no, I'm this has been eye-opening for me. I think to me this was like a kicking off of a new field and a new topic for us. We put together a resource guide, and we started to put out this little resource guide for college students, and then it grew and grew and grew and grew and grew. And I think there's more we could do here. I saw a couple of the folks in the chat made notice that they are researchers, and I think maybe we could do a survey, put together a report. I think there's more we could do here that then maybe we could take to the Department of Justice, or we can take to Congress about improving the legislation, because I think that one of the things that went through my mind about the damages is that when somebody's working and they're fired, you know what the damages are. But these are students. And so if I'm a student and I'm on the swim team or the soccer team or the football team, and I get kicked off in high school, but that was kind of my hope for a scholarship, those are damages. Maybe we need, to run this by some attorneys. But my thought is that there are these unforeseen estimated value of life kind of damages, because we're talking about young people whose potential career earnings and trajectories are being impacted by being bullied or being harassed and intimidated, so that they're not excelling, and not just sports. I mean, we've had other students that were like journalists and got minor children who have gotten hit with SLAPP suits, strategic litigation against public participation. 15-year-old getting a slap because he wrote about his mother's case in his school paper. So I know that, and music students and art students, I know there is multi-factors of this, that when we're not properly accommodating or listening to these students, that there are damages here beyond just them. Oh, well, now you can't swim anymore. Go do something else. It's more to it than that. So
one thing, and I wanted to say real quick, in addition to all the damages that you just mentioned, my son was placed in school suspension for 14 days. And during those 14 days, he was not receiving his work. So my honor student was taken from a 95 to a 55. So there's that aspect as well.
No, I mean, I think we need to figure this out maybe a little bit more. Jill has been kind of my lead on this, and so I think we now have more work for her to do. And I know we've had
Jamie too.
Yep. Jamie has been helping. Jamie put together the guide, because I'm not good with Canva or any of that kind of stuff. But we have some of our University of West Florida interns on here as well. I saw a bunch of people in the chat were researchers. If there's one thing I'm good at, it's putting everybody to work. So, I think we can do more with this, and we will, we have the list of everybody who attended tonight. I'm sure there are even more parents out there and more students out there that would be interested in this. So I think there's more for us to do. And Betsy, if you could put the links one more time in the chat. I know some people said they didn't see them. They were in the beginning, and there's been quite a bit conversations going on in the chat. But we will we will have the guide up online. We know it's a work in progress. Anything you want to suggest, I took notes about some things tonight, but anything we need to add to our guide, to our toolkit, any follow-up, I think we can collect maybe some more data on this and do some surveys with, I guess, with parents and adult students. I don't think we can survey children. That might be too far a stretch for us, but I think there is more we can do, and I'm happy to lend us and our organization to the cause. And Betsy did just put, she's putting more things in the chat. While I have some of you on the line, we are planning what we call Giraffe Camp for July 30th, an opportunity for young people to work with professors from George Washington University on a day of anti-corruption and ethics education. So I think some of the kids that we're talking about might be prime for this. Our young people have done Giraffe Camp before, but this year I'm so excited that we met these professors, and they're willing to have us and host us at George Washington University in DC on July 30th, which is National Whistleblower Day. So please, keep that in mind, and hopefully we can get some of you involved with that. Our regular conference will be in September, and we can readdress some of these issues as we move forward with other events and other activities. So thank you all very much for participating tonight. We will have this up on our YouTube channel. If you have not already subscribed to us on YouTube, I can pull that up really fast as well, maybe not. If you come to our homepage on our website, we definitely have all of our social media. Our YouTube channel, put this in the chat. We just posted all of our conference sessions from September. So check out some of our other content, and please stay in touch with us. So thank you, and please enjoy the rest of your week, and we hope to see you again soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jill, Kim. I can't see where you are, but thank you for stepping up tonight.